I would like to commend the presenter of this report and the other reports that I haven't been able to comment on. Now, I think when we talk about agriculture, and it's good that in the morning we were listening to a presentation about trade within SADC, and I think we have to be linking every other thing that we talk about because they are all linked. If you talk about agriculture, you're talking about farmers, you're talking about peasants, you're talking about large-scale farming. Now, if we think in our countries we can actually be self-sufficient in terms of food security, we have to be looking at the countries that we were mentioning this morning, and I have no interest of mentioning them, that they have actually been feeding SADC countries, maybe not all, but most of the SADC countries. Now, what sort of agriculture do they have? It's large-scale farming. And when you talk about large-scale farming, you're talking about infrastructure being put in place. What sort of infrastructure? You can't have a huge farm such as those farms that we see in those countries that we are all very frequent visitors. Those are large farms. They have got roads, they have got energy, they have got power, they are irrigated. Now, if we are talking about that, and we have just had the symposium about energy in our own places, if you have little energy in the country, how are you going to sustain that agriculture that you want to really sustain food in SADC? So you have to be, or rather, we have to be looking at all these sectors together. So when we talk about trading within ourselves, we're not talking about trade between food that is produced or agricultural produce that is produced by a peasant, because a peasant most likely will produce what is not even enough for their own family. We are talking about large-scale farming. Large-scale farming, we have to be looking at other supporting infrastructure that goes with it. And now I will go back to where we were talking about energy. We have to start prioritizing what is it that is going to assist us in the agricultural sector. If it's energy, then let's focus on energy, and I would agree with our colleagues from Congo, and Mr. President, you also spoke about that in the morning, about the INGA project and how it can actually give power to the entire SADC. If that is the case, then why don't we think about going with that INGA, which will actually give energy to the entire SADC, and then start thinking about these large-scale farming. I agree that most of us grew up with our fathers and mothers being peasants, but that's not sustainable anymore. We are not peasants anymore. We have to start thinking in a bigger way to develop our region. How do we develop it? We have to look at all these sectors. If we have barriers in our own countries on trade, and we're talking about agriculture, if one country produces in excess a particular type of product, why wouldn't SADC countries buy from this particular country instead of going to look for similar products very far away? Why don't we like our own products? The same way we talk about buying our own products in our own countries, why don't we look at the region that way? And I would mention only one predicament that some of the SADC countries have gone through. You find we are in the same region. One country produces agricultural produce, they export to another country, and then this country deliberately destroys that product and says it hasn't met the standards. Why don't you take it back to your brothers and sisters in that country where that product came from? Why are you destroying it? You're making the other peasants or other farmers in that country poor for no reason. If we are talking about coming together as a bloc, as a trading bloc, as a bloc where we can say this country produces better maize, this other country produces better beans, this other country has better, whatever, you name it. Why don't we agree and then get moving? Because otherwise we will, we will be here talking today, next year we will have again, because these topics I mean, this committee is there and it will produce the report. So I think we have to prioritize and then concentrate on our priorities. Now one would say, what are you doing in your own country, because you're talking about prioritizing and stuff. I mean, I won't have time to talk about everything, but in SADC we are open. People might come to learn a few things or two, and maybe I think because most of the information is on the internet, people can do that. But maybe I'll talk about, when we talked about energy on the symposium, I talked about our plan to ensure every village gets power, gets energy, gets electricity. That is part of Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, to ensure that we move from the current way of doing things in the agricultural sector. We move now to the other ways of handling this particular sector. And this year she has increased even the budget that was just approved by Parliament, just to show that, you know, we have to move from this normal way of doing things in agriculture so that our farmers can actually develop. And we also have to ensure that the peasants now become farmers, and later they become owners maybe of this large-scale farming. Thank you so much, Mr. President.